Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, we're sitting here Sunday morning and talk about something that I did not have on my bingo card way back in the month of August. Yeah, I thought this was the year for Dabo and Clemson to really quiet the haters, of which there were many. A lot of people pointing at Dabo and Clemson saying, hey, the sport has passed him by. He ain't got it like he had 5 to 10 years ago. They were sitting here Sunday morning say that the haters might have been right. You look at it, and there's two things that can be true in this conversation. Ton of respect and admiration to what Dabo Swinney has built at Clemson. And on the flip side, I think it's become very, very clear that this 2025 season, I don't know if it's a blip on the radar. I think it's a downward trend. And now the question is, all right, how long are we willing to wait to make the move? How long of a leash has Dabo Swinney got? And here's my biggest concern. And I've talked to the Clemson fans. I'm on the message boards with the Clemson fans, and many Clemson fans seemingly feel the same way. The longer you wait, the farther you get removed from where Dabo built this program. Like, teams don't fear going on the road and playing Clemson. 5 years ago, you looked at your schedule and you're a Duke fan, and you saw at Clemson, like, chalk that up as a loss. Hopefully we get him next week. And you look to the recruiting trail. That offer from Clemson 5 years ago, like, it meant something. Guys were taking visits, and I'm not saying that offer from Clemson doesn't mean anything anymore. It certainly doesn't feel like it has the same weight. And just go look at how Clemson has been acquiring talent the last couple of years. Guess what I'm trying to get at is the longer you wait, the farther you get removed from the peak of what Dabo built Clemson up to be. And here's, in my opinion, maybe the perfect outcome here. You see what happened with Nick Saban at Alabama, and hear me out. Bobby Bowden at Bobby Bowden at Florida State. It kind of similar where it's like they built really, really special programs up, and at some point they might have realized, hey, maybe I don't have it like I
Well, I
had it.
mean, we can just be realistic. That is not happening. Dabo's made it pretty clear that that's not happening. And obviously, the big difference is he's 20 years younger than both those guys. So, again, I do think this is going to be in Clemson's court. They're going to need to probably make some sort of difficult
Yeah,
decision because I'm kind of with you. This isn't like, oh, we're having a really bad year and we're all overreacting to it. Like, you haven't had a lot of good years lately. Like, I don't know, 2022 is probably the last time you look in the last 5 years and say that was like a really great year. And even that I feel feels a little hollow. It's nothing close to what you had in the late 20 teens. It,
and
it
look,
does feel
am
like you're
I
getting
getting
really far removed from like that team that teams fear. Like you don't
am
really
I
look
getting
at
up here and saying I need to have those years every single year? No, but I also don't think it takes a genius to recognize that there's a trend here. This is not a blip. And here's my biggest concern, though. Like, sell me on this thing getting better in 2026. Oh, Cade's going to the NFL. You're going to have a brand new offensive line. You're going to lose 2 first on NFL draft picks on the defensive line of Peter Woods and TJ Parker. You get a feel that there's going to be a little bit more attrition this year than years past
Well,
in
and
the transfer portal as well.
this year had to be the year to get the momentum back because you're
Yeah.
right. Like you
Yeah.
have a really good team. This is it feels at least from a talent standpoint to be an extremely capable roster. And I look
Yep.
at what the recruiting classes have been. Dabo's lack of desire to use the transfer portal. Like, are they going to be
Coaching
able to
hires,
build
I
something?
think you can certainly that might be the biggest problem here is, 5-10 years ago, Dabo soon was trying out the best coaching staffs in the country, or damn near the best coaching staffs in the country.
Really
I don't
lucky to have 7 and in 10 years like Brent Venables and Tony Elliott, like, had assistants who stayed and somehow stayed a lot longer than a lot of, like, elite programs are able to keep their assistants.
Yep. And ever since that, you feel it's been one kind of a rotating door of coaching staffs. And number two, you just don't feel. I mean, like, I thought the Tom Allen hire was money. Duke just put up 46 at Clemson on the road at Clemson. All right, we're gonna give our takes, right? I want to hear from the Clemson fans too. And number one, I do want to say thank you. This program's been really fun to talk about the last couple of years, not so much the last couple of weeks, but the support this fan base has shown the boys has been amazing. And regardless if Dabo is the head coach going into 2026 or not, there's going to be changes. And you feel like we're going to have a lot to talk about with this football program the next couple of weeks and months. Appreciate you guys. Please let it fly in the comment section. I don't even know if I care all that much, my opinion, your opinion. Kind of want to hear from the Clemson fans who've been rocking with the boys the last couple of years. How do you guys feel? Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, what I want to ask you here is, if you were to evaluate the last 3 to 4 years and kind of identifying this downward trend, and you were to point to what feels off with this Clemson program, what's the number one thing you're pointing to?
Player development. And that's why it gets really concerning. Like, I know you can talk recruiting and staff hires and not using the portal.
Well, staff hires and player development to me are like kind of go hand in hand.
Probably are a little bit intertwined, but like, I just look at the lack of improvement from a lot of positions.
Yep.
With Cade Klubnik coming into this year, you almost feel like you got regression. The offensive line, just a lack of ability to get better. And this has been a group that's been together now for a lot of years. Haven't seen the improvement they probably need. The secondary, I mean, dear God, like, you're getting regression there. It feels like across the board. The lack of ability to get guys better in that program, because that was like what made Dabo Swinney great. I mean, they were unbelievable at taking guys who are under the radar, if you will, maybe under recruited, and making them monsters. And they did it year after year after year. You're just not getting that anymore. And if that part isn't going to be humming for Clemson, Dabo Swinney's pretty much made it clear that he's not going to like get the other parts going, if you will. Like, they're not going to be ultra aggressive in NIL, ultra aggressive in the portal, ultra aggressive talent acquires. You need to have your roots working, and they're just not working right now.
You could not have said it better and you said it better than me in terms of what's gone wrong. That's what made Clemson great. And you feel like that's not there anymore. And then that makes you question, like, all right, well, that's not there, though. The one thing that was, and Dill, here's the other thing I'll say, and I would love to hear the Clemson fans' takes on this, like culture. Did that team, who played harder yesterday, right? Something feels off in terms of like the culture that we have in the locker room too. It was player development and culture. The recipe wasn't super complicated. It's just really hard to replicate, right? It's hard to show the improvement in terms of player development that Clemson showed. It's hard to have the culture that Clemson had the last 10 plus years. That none of that feels the same this year. And again, my biggest concern is that I just don't know if it's going to get any better in 2026. Like, they're going to have, unless there's something that dramatically changes in terms of how Dabo Swinney wants to run this program, this roster in 2026 is going to be worse than what it was in 2025. That's my biggest concern, is that we feel like this is not a blip in the radar. We feel like it's a trend. And then you start projecting what it's going to look like for the next 2 to 3 years. And you say, well, it feels like we're trending in the wrong direction. I'll ask you this. If Clemson were to make a move, and this is tough, right? You want to be a football school. This is some of the decisions you have to make. Who would be the name that you would look to go out and get if you're Clemson? I think there's one obvious one. I think you know it too.
Yeah, I think honestly, I'm looking at Tony Elliott. I think Tony Elliott gives you a bit of a chance to maintain some level of the continuity, but bring in like a fresh perspective, a fresh mindset. And Tony Elliott's a guy who I look at the way he's kind of built through that Virginia program. In Virginia, did not do him any favors early. Like, that was not a school that was particularly embracing of the new ways of doing things. This was the first year you felt like Virginia kind of tried a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're they're rocking. They're playing.
Who do you credit that to? You credit Tony Elliott, right? Like, when you have a head coach that can get the backing of a school, of a state, matters. Tony Elliott's
not a state that, or not a school, I should say, that gives it. Like, obviously, if you're at Auburn, you know you're going to get the support because they live and die with Auburn football. That is not Virginia football. He was able to finally get that administration on board, get the donors on board. He got a roster that I think is capable of competing, and you see what he's doing with it. He's doing a really good job.
And you get to bring in a coach that's shown that he can win, but also, because I do think you're right. I don't know if you want to drop out. You don't want to like lose. You don't want to shed everything that
Well, and
Clemson's
that's
built, right?
why you don't want to hold on to Dabo too long, because then you just lose it and you have to kind of burn it down from the studs. Like there is still like a monster in Clemson to an
Yep.
extent. I feel like the
Yep.
name still carries some weight.
Still
There's
means
still
something, man.
something to Clemson.
Yeah.
That's why look, I think Tony Elliott might be a really good kind of compromise. Like, yeah, he knows the Dabo way of doing it. He certainly knows Clemson, but he also has found a way to make it work in this modern era and be a little bit more flexible than clearly what Dabo's been.
Can I give you one that I feel like,
Give me BV.
no, well, I did have him like as a thought process, but I'll go Kenny. He feels like another guy that I know he's not a Dabo disciple, you might say, but
And I think
boy, does he.
Clemson fans might look and say, well, we don't want any more Dabo disciples. We've had
And
enough former players come through or former coaches get
you talk
elevated,
about another
not do a
frustration.
great job.
You talk about, and I had this in my notes. I didn't say it when we were on the topic, but Dill, and I don't mean to single one individual out, but it's more just like a representation of what I think has gone wrong a little bit. Like Ben Boulware coaching the linebackers. What has Ben Boulware done in his coaching career to deserve that opportunity? And I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but there's this like unspoken. You want to have your coaches earn their spots. You brought Ben Boulware, who I believe was, had a cup of coffee in the NFL, very good football player for Clemson, obviously. Cup of coffee in the NFL was running a private gym, I believe. And then you brought him in as a defensive intern in 2024. And you saw the Clemson defense not play very good. And all of a sudden you promote from within a guy that's never been a position coach and you have him coach your linebackers. Like that to me that's one of the fundamental problems. I don't
You look
know
at
if
Wes Goodwin and say kind of the same thing. Like, what did
yeah,
Wes Goodwin never really had to go be a defensive coordinator
yeah.
anymore? He just worked his way through the system, and then when he got the head chair, if you will, it was like, oh, this is not working, and this guy doesn't have it. I think you are right. There's certainly some issue with the insular nature of how Dabo's run Clemson to an extent. Like I'm taking Clemson guys, and again, I'm sure that came to some extent from his like journey through college football, where he hasn't been around the. He basically was at Alabama, then right to Clemson, and just kind of worked his
I
way up.
have no problem with hiring Clemson guys if they earn it. Right? And in fact, I would like ideally Clemson guys if they earn it. But there's a lot of coaches on these did a lot of these coaches necessarily earn their spots? And like I look at a guy like Ben Boulware and say, that doesn't make a ton of sense. Kenny Dillingham to me, I think is a guy that you talk about like infusion of energy and kind of doing it. It feels like a younger Dabo a little bit too. I would take a shot at Kenny Dillingham. We'll see if Clemson decides to do it again. I understand the argument of Dabo Swinney has earned the right to try to fix this, and I get that. I think he's been trying to fix it for the last
Well,
couple of
it's
years.
been going off the rails for almost 5 years. I
Yeah.
think that's where like you got to like take an honest evaluation because again, I said it like 2022 is since 2020, the year Trevor Lawrence obviously left.
Yep.
2022 is the only year you look and say that's kind of maybe up to the standard on the surface. If you dig under the hood, it really isn't. It wasn't a wildly impressive year.
Yeah, I mean, even last year when you made the playoffs, it's not like
No, that
that
was
Clemson.
hollow. That was not.
Yeah, it was
That wasn't
hollow.
like that didn't feel like a good year.
Yeah.
I didn't think.
Yeah, and the longer the wait, the more far we get removed, in my opinion. It's a really hard decision to make. I don't envy the decision makers that be. But you get paid a lot of money to make these hard decisions, and we'll see if Clemson decides to. That's my take. Hey, Clemson fans, let it fly in the comment section. There might be some disagreements, and that's the beauty of this conversation. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy it, consider subscribing to the channel. We're going to have a lot to talk about regardless. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.